Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my basement, which you'll be seeing again next week because Columbus Day weekend, yay! Celebrating a mass murderer. Uh, anyway, enough with that liberal downside of it. Welcome to Cubic Dimensions, as always. Christian and I are here as always, and today we're going to give you a wrap up of what's been happening the last week or so. So first and foremost, of course, is this past Monday's debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. If you got to see our coverage of it, it was pretty bad. I still don't understand live streams yet. I'm getting used to them. I'm getting used to them. But with practice makes perfect. Anyway, so as you might have gathered, if you did watch our commentary, and if you heard everybody else's reaction to it, it started off with Hillary Clinton kind of underperforming a little bit, but once it really started to kick off, she appeared very confident, very articulate, whereas Trump was the exact opposite. He looked like an imbecile. He looked like a child. He was screaming into the microphone nonstop. Some things he said that we actually agreed with, but his delivery was so poor. It was ridiculous. But yeah, so Christian, what do you think this debate it's the first of three, and a lot of the times the last debate tends to be the most important, just because it's closer to the election day.
Election, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can recover from that, because that's not a good start. If that is a sign of things to come from this point forward, things aren't going to go well. The only thing I can say, the only reason this debate could be more relevant, watched debate in history of like perhaps in history in general, if India doesn't have more watched debates, I suppose. So with that in mind, if you have a lot of people not tune in for the next two, which I think will definitely happen, because now that initial buildup of actually seeing Trump v. Clinton on stage, my computer's probably shaking a lot.
It is.
Yeah, so with that actual buildup lost, I don't think you'll see as many people watching the next two debates. And with that in mind, it's entirely possible that this is very significant for his chances. And if that's the case, that's not good, because that was not a good performance. And I think as we go forward, in preparation of the next debate, we're now going to have to deal with, he's now going to have to deal with the fact that the fact he may not have paid taxes for almost 2 decades will be something he'll have to address in the next debate. Like his whole attacking Rosie O'Donnell at 3 a.m, or attacking that Miss Universe from the 90s, in the morning on Twitter, telling people to go find a sex tape of her or something like that. He's going to have to address these things the next time. So Hillary Clinton's already getting stockpiled ammunition for the second debate. And I'm sure there will be plenty more for the third, especially if the tax thing continues to get worse.
It didn't even start with that. It started with his immediate reaction after the debate, where he went to the spin room for whatever reason, because candidates never go. He immediately gave her ammunition for the second debate, because he goes in and he's like, oh yeah, I did a perfect job, a great job. My mic was awful, as Alec Baldwin put it in his impression of Donald Trump. Clinton and Obama, they screwed it up. They took it to Kenya and they screwed it up. He said that right after the debate ended, and people are just like, holy fuck, what did we do? This guy could be president. I think even his supporters are just like, what did he just say? It's getting to the point of ridiculousness, where even people who like him are just like, dude, what are you doing? What is going through your mind at the moment?
Just stop, please. And yeah. Look, I think the thing with Trump is that I think he's right, that there's probably 35% of the country that would vote for him of someone in even if he shot someone in broad daylight. And as far as I'm concerned, he's pretty much done. He's pretty much proposed. He's planning to do things as bad, if not worse, than that. And he still has a large portion of the electorate. But I think if you were, I think if you were any of the like people left in the middle, the people in the middle are unique this time in that they're probably not like I'm a rational centrist. It's probably more so people like I don't really follow politics, but I'm probably going to vote. I think if they saw that debate, I think that debate, no matter how hard he tries going forward, that will lay in their mind because that was how bad that performance was.
Yeah, definitely. And as we kind of said it in our very quick post-debate reaction, at least as I brought up, Clinton's whole strategy seems to be on turnout. And that really has been the Democratic strategy for decades because it just so happens that the more that there's voter turnout, the more likely the Democrat ends up winning. It's not all the time, but most of the time that's what happens. And in this case, it is especially true because it's exactly what you said. It's about getting those people who don't follow politics all that much, getting them to say, hey man, I really don't give a shit about politics, but I really don't want to see Donald Trump become president.
Yeah.
One of the first memes, I guess you could say, things that floating around the internet that I saw after he announced his candidacy was a sign that said IDK, but not Trump, though, 2016. So it's definitely about getting those people out to vote. And I mean, it really depends, I think, on the next few weeks, because this is the critical time for this election. Now, I think in the week since the debate happened, Trump has been falling all over himself. And it's not like previously in the election where he fell all over himself and yet his lead maintained, or he got better, or he got even more support. No, he's falling all over himself and he's losing support. He's down 6 points in Nevada, a state, the day before the debate, he was neck and neck with Clinton and in some polls leading. He's down 6 points in Nevada. He's down in Florida. Clinton has a dodgy but good enough lead in Florida now, and in Pennsylvania. Thing is, if she gets Nevada, she gets Pennsylvania, she gets Florida, it's done. It's done. He's over. He's done. He doesn't even.
Yeah.
She doesn't even need Ohio. Ohio is always the linchpin. She doesn't need Ohio.
Yeah.
So this is really, I think, unless he
but
can.
But the internet polls say he won. The internet polls.
That was almost as bad as like after the Bernie Hillary debates, where like Bernie would win those instant polls on the internet like by 90%. And like, yeah, that looks good. That looks good because it's like, oh, good, people on the internet like Bernie. But at the same time, it's like, all right, but she's winning. Why is she winning? Because, I don't know, about 75% of the people who vote don't even know the internet exists.
Yeah.
Because they're old. And young people, I love you. And you really turned out this year, which is impressive. And I want you to vote for more. Don't get me wrong. I want you to vote more. But stop complaining when you don't fucking vote. You never vote. And so, yeah. But point is, they did vote in these polls, except they're the only people who voted in these polls, and it was like 2 people who supported Hillary Clinton because their mommy and daddy like her. And we're like, oh yeah, Clinton won. And then with Trump, it's, the alt-right invaded those polls. Because in reality, in the polls afterwards, like I just said earlier, Clinton's crushing him now. Or I shouldn't say crushing, but she's doing, she's almost back to where she was at the beginning of the general election, which is pretty impressive. A pretty impressive comeback.
Yeah.
From just being neck and neck a little while ago.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I haven't had a chance really to talk to someone on the alt-right before, but I had a chance last night. That was fascinating.
It's an interesting story.
That was a very interesting. He's like, because it was weird, because you'd think we would have gotten into more like a shouting match, but it never really went in that direction. We were all like respectable and like the entire way through. But it's like I was like really like pacing myself because he was like, I don't know how he got to. It's like, but no, I would say Muslims are the enemy and they are evil. I'm like, I really want to say you're a horrible person right now, but I'm just not, because I don't think that's gonna help. I don't think I'm gonna convince you by saying that. But it was weird though, connected to what we're talking about, because coming to see where they're coming from on Trump versus Clinton is just such a weird experience, because the entire thought process is that, or at least for this individual member of the alt-right, is that, look, Trump isn't great, but Clinton is just worse. And I was like, how is Clinton worse? And he's like, well, she's the most corrupt politician ever. And I was like, okay. And he's like, and she's a murderer for, voting for the Iraq War. And I'm like, so is Margaret Thatcher a murderer? Because this guy's, Scottish that I'm talking to. I'm like, so is Margaret Thatcher a murderer? He's like, and I'm like, is Ronald Reagan a murderer? And he's like, true. But my point more so is that, look, I think as far as Trump supporters, my only fear then is that portion of the Trump supporters doesn't care what he does in a debate. Relevant that we even try to convince them that he's wrong, because he's not. They're the people we're never going to get on our side. It is, as we said at the beginning of this, it's the people who don't care about politics, who might feel they have to vote this time, that you need to get to vote for Clinton, and that's who we have to try and reach. I guess because this is something that's so collectively bad for humanity, that I think we should be trying to do that.
I'm actually like, what's his name? Oh my god, the previous president of France, not Francois Hollande, but the guy he beat.
Sarkozy.
Yeah. Like, even he came out. This was way back during the beginning of the election, but even he came out and was like, "Yeah, I'm with her." Like, the Republican field is scary. When a guy from Les Républicains, the right, the center-right party in France, is like, yeah, your center-right party is scary. I'm voting for the left, supposedly left-leaning person. That's concerning. But
yeah,
one thing I wanted to talk about real quick in regards to this is, so my sort of political bubble has been inundated with a lot of these different articles, especially post-debate, about how Trump has normalized bigotry. To which I'm just like, at the beginning of this campaign a year ago, I was shouting from the rooftops, he entertaining his thought process. He's already normalizing bigotry because it's making it seem like it's part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And now, as I kind of learned in the PPE talk, that foreign policy forum that we had last week, not this past week, but the week before, on the rise of right-wing nationalism in Europe, which I think I talked about last show too, is that there's this connection with America where right-wing groups in Europe had been shut out after World War II because of Nazis, and fascists, and they're like, all right, you guys can no longer be part of the conversation. Well, like it or not, right-wing views are still, they're still alive. Like, just because you say to someone that isn't, an okay view to have, doesn't mean they're going to change their mind. They're going to shut up, but that doesn't mean they're going to change their mind. And like Europe, America is on this path where this reaction to the the shunning of these far right ideas has come back to, I guess, bite us in the ass with Trump. And it's not the only reason, but it's one of the big reasons, I think. What do you think, Christian?
I disagree,
Okay.
because I think those ideas are going to exist, right? We kind of admit that in a world where there are so many millions of people, every country is going to have some enclave that has horrifying worldviews. But I think by keeping that group out of the limelight, and anytime they poke their face out, laughing at them and shunning them and not giving them a seat at the table, anyone in the room who's laughing at them, who might have kind of thought their idea might have been entertaining, or might have, sort of like listened to them and might have been convinced, isn't gonna do that, because they just do. Like, I would even argue that's part of the difference between Canada and the U.S. is Canada has those groups, but it's because freedom of speech is viewed differently in Canada. Because if you don't know, our Constitution, it begins and ends with it basically saying, yo, rights, but you don't actually have that right, given the circumstance. And one of those circumstances is if someone has a hateful worldview, they can literally be if you're on the street with a gays should be stoned sign, the police can literally take the sign away from you until you don't come back to the street corner. And I think what that does is it shoves that view system under the water, so that it's not acceptable. People understand that, and I think that's how you end up with a very progressive mindset in a sense, is because the government's literally telling you what is and isn't acceptable as far as views. I know this doesn't sound very liberal or democratic, but I think there's sometimes you need to do things in the name of that might have been a Freudian slip, preserving your democratic system. Sometimes you got to do things that don't entirely sound immediately democratic, if you follow my thought process.
So, well, again, it is different in Europe and Canada than it is in the United States, where we do have, I guess, very loose meanings of freedoms of speech and expression and whatnot.
Yeah.
So now I'm not entirely opposed to that, but what my concern is that, so the concerns that these people bring up are not entirely unreasonable. A lot of them are have these views because they feel that they've been screwed over economically, which in a lot of cases they can. This kind of goes back to the whole hillbilly thing that I talked about a few shows ago. And so, if we want to if we want to say, okay, those views are absolutely dumb in terms of, the Jews are taking over the world and stuff like that and what have you, I have that. But unfortunately, I think we've allowed that to become a segue into, let's completely ignore these people. Let's not listen to their concerns, whether they end up being reasonable or not. Let's just not listen to them. And
so I think that gets to what I'm saying, though, is that if you had made it so that they weren't hearing from, what's the word I'm looking for? If they weren't hearing from hateful people that, that the person causing your problems is Freeman down the street who owns the store, the Jewish guy. If they weren't hearing those views because there literally was no avenue through which those views can be communicated from them, then they're simply left with their problems, and they will try to articulate their problems through means that are more socially acceptable, and they're therefore taken more seriously. So if you're a poor farmer, if you're coming from a poorer town in Manitoba, you don't go out and say, yeah, the Muslims are doing this. You say, well, you're gonna find an avenue, you're gonna find an evil that is not hateful because you had no one was telling you it was them in the first place. So you're going to come to what I think is a more reasonable and accurate conclusion about what your problems are. And because you did that, the lefty in Toronto doesn't think you're a hateful bigot. The lefty in Toronto says, that sounds reasonable. I could see that. And I think it makes it more easy it allows for an opposition to a problematic policy to more easily coalesce. If that didn't sound too rambling.
I mean, no, it makes sense. I just think that in the past few years of U.S. history, that kind of attitude has been abused, and it's a perfect storm when you also have a corrupt political system that is going to radicalize people anyway.
True.
And I've said this over and over again. Political correctness is completely okay. It makes sense. It's okay. Like, this firestorm against it doesn't make any sense. Except with that, it has gone over the top, at least in terms of how media presents it, because, oh, well, you can't say that word, and you can't say that word, and nitpicking, all that stuff. Not to mention the whole news media is fake as hell. So, again, I don't sympathize with these people's views. I think they're wrong, or deplorable, as Hillary Clinton would put it, even though, again, not what I would say. At the same time, their concerns are not entirely invalid. But I think we beat that dead horse.
Yeah,
pretty well.
Yeah.
All right, so next story.
Yay.
You want to bring up a Canada story?
So, I have two stories, but one of them's not a Canada story. Whatever you say, Christian. You go on, do your ramblings. So I did want to bring this one up. So there's a Aboriginal community in Nova Scotia that goes by the name of Potlotech, which sounds totally like somewhere out of like the Aztecs. But anyways, Potlotech, and it's currently going through a bit of a water crisis because the water has manganese and causing the water to kind of come out a brown color in people's taps, and of course the metals in it don't exactly have a great smell. Now, Health Canada says, well, it doesn't look good, but you could drink it, but it's probably not good to do that. So yeah, the Health Canada's recommending people in the community buy bottled water because that's completely economically feasible in the long run. And yeah, this is not good.
You know what my favorite thing to do is to have bottled water showers.
Yeah, or do your laundry with bottled water. It's funny, they have a picture of the water tower in that town. It is just the most grungy looking building I have ever seen. Oh, anyway, so yeah, this coming off of what's going on in Flint, Michigan. Here's the thing. Infrastructure is important. I know it's not a sexy topic. It's not something anyone on either side like rallies to as like, a place to be heroic, I suppose, or to champion your beliefs. But at the end of the day, you need roads and you need pipes for your water. When we built all this infrastructure in like the 50s after World War II, we said, that's good. We've done this. There's a lifetime on that infrastructure and we have to maintain it. And I think we're quite often reluctant to maintain it because it's a nice little area to kind of ignore when you're a politician to spend money on things that will look better in your re-election campaign. Maintain the pipe. As much as I think things down for, It's not something quite often governments run on, as important as it is.
I don't understand why more people don't run on infrastructure though, because I mean, like, it's not like that's not like, yeah, it's not an attractive topic, but I mean, it's not like you can say, yeah, I want to fix the infrastructure, and people will be like, fuck no, that's a waste of our taxpayer money. I'm pretty sure even in towns where like literally the only constituent is one person, like Success, New Hampshire, and you're like, I want to fix the roads in Success, New Hampshire, that person's going to be like, hell yeah, take all my money, fix the goddamn road. Like I don't like I don't see how
Though, because I feel like there's definitely a camp of people.
Oh, sorry, you lagged, so I didn't know you were talking.
Okay, no problem. I feel like there's definitely someone out there who's like, we should definitely have a company do it. For a company to just, its job will be to just maintain the water, and the government can step out of the way, and the company will do it for cheaper. I feel like who honestly believe that.
They
not
they
that I
realize,
think that
well, what I understand, because there is that argument that is made sometimes, and I'm like, when the government repaves roads and stuff like that, they contract it out. They already pay companies to do it. You're just cutting out the middleman, which frankly doesn't cut that much cost.
Yeah. In fact, it might increase the cost because the middleman wants to make some money, as opposed to the government that's just like, I will do it at the lowest possible cost, because I want to use that infrastructure money for something else if I could save a few quarters.
And that's the thing, is that infrastructure repairs tends to be on the local level. Now,
yeah.
as sometimes bad as it can be, just because some corruption and stuff, like, half the time, you know who the mayor is. Like, you know who your town's mayor is. You've probably met him a few times. He might be your cousin. Like, it's like literally, it's just like, it's not like these are evil Washington bureaucrats. Rah 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 rah. It's Joe Schmo down the street who happens to be on the planning board, like me. or
talk to him.
Or your buddy Alex who lives across town, who's also the town engineer. Like, it's not like, because people treat a lot of politicians as if they're Katy Perry or Matt Damon. You're never going to meet them. Well, a lot of the governing goes down at the local government, especially infrastructure stuff. You know those people. It's easy to talk to them. It's easy. When I go to my meetings for the planning board, I don't even wear a tie. No one wears a tie. Yeah, we might come in like a polo shirt or something like that and jeans. Like, I won't be wearing this to a planning board meeting, but like, I have like some Ralph Lauren on and like American Eagle jeans. That's it. Like, it's not like we're unapproachable. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand.
And I suppose there's the extra Canadian have bad infrastructure problems, from just straight up houses in Northern Ontario without insulation.
Bruh.
Like, yeah, water in some of them to begin with. Like, we've just not distributed. I don't know Native issues enough to know exactly why massive disparity in the of build between Native communities and the rest of us. But there has to be something wrong when the average Canadian lives in like the 4th best country in the world, but the average native lives in the 63rd country in the world.
Why do you care about natives so much? It's all right. They don't matter anymore. They're stuff of myth.
It's like the bison. They don't actually exist. What? Bison exist? Oh.
Well, here's the thing: is that they've been Indigenous people, especially in the United States and in Canada, have been so thoroughly wiped out. You know, with the exception of a few thousand, maybe a million of them, that they are like most Americans, most Canadians will not see an Indigenous person in their lifetime. I've never met someone who's Native American at all, and
Huh.
it's literally like these people don't exist, and so I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people don't care about them, because it's like, oh yeah, they lived a long time ago and we accidentally killed them all. Like, oops, I didn't know they were still alive. This is
It,
this is weird.
it's funny
This
because
is awkward.
we do it. I think especially the CBC tries very hard somewhere to like remind people, because I guess they're trying to address the very issue you're saying. I have met who I actually talked to, and the rest that I've encountered, I've like seen passingly, and they weren't even like a native reserve, like a community. They were like living in Ottawa in a suburb, and they just happened to know, they just happened to have basically. So I think if you leave the reserve, then you lose the native like official for you. I land on the reserve. You don't get all the benefits natives do, but then you don't have the negatives that they're given from the old constitution. So, but anyway, complete. Either way, we got we got to do something. Like, even if you want to try and blame them for their current lot, at the end of the day, oh, they don't have the same opportunities as the rest of us. Their kids kind of should have equal opportunity, and I think having clean water is kind of fundamental. Like, we could talk about a lot of problems, like access to education and like quality of like until you have good running water, everything else is irrelevant. Um. Anyway, enough of that.
That's a great campaign slogan.
Oh. First, you need good water. Yeah. There. Anyways, if you want to take the reins back, don't. I can.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Just had to turn off my camera for a little bit. Next big story of the week.
You want me to go to my next?
But Christian, I was talking.
I know I'm not talking. I think there's a lag. So, and then you're hearing them after.
Yeah, there's definitely a lag. Do you have your computer plugged in with an Ethernet cord?
The Ethernet cord hasn't been working on the laptop recently. I don't know why.
That's bad. That was actually kind of funny because a friend of mine, we had to go to like a Staples to get him a cord for his to attach his laptop to his printer, and the guy's just like, it was like a $20 cord, and the guy's like, "Do you want a warranty on it?" Which was an extra $20. Was an extra for $20. He's like, "No, I'll just like buy a new one later." And he's like, "I don't know, man. Those things are pretty cheap. Like, they break pretty easily." And he's like, "I'm plugging this in from my printer to my laptop. I don't think it's gonna have a lot of wear and tear on it."
Oh, sales goals. Most sales goals.
I feel bad. But anyway, so next story. So hopefully, since this is an international channel and we're big fans of Jeremy Corbyn, hopefully you heard that recently Jeremy Corbyn was reelected leader of the Labour Party, defeating challenger Owen Smith. I think it was like, what, 62 to 38? Point is, it was pretty big. And he actually increased his share of the vote by about 2-3% from the last election, and increased the number of votes he got by a few 100,000, which is pretty impressive, considering that parties in Europe tend to not be nearly 1 million people, which I kind of find shocking. But then I remember how massively populated the U.S. is, since both parties tend to have millions of registered voters. But yeah, and the Labour Party, I believe, is now the biggest party by membership in the entirety of Europe. I believe that's true, because a bunch of new people registered to vote with the Labour Party during and after the election. So yay! So my question is, some of him over here.
Parliamentary politics, man. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Bernie Sanders had like 4 years to build up? Like, I think he would have won at that point because I think he was starting to get popularity once it was too late to actually have an effect. But if he had a few years to build himself up to be, the head of the Democratic Party like he would in a parliamentary system, I don't doubt he would have won.
There's a thread in alternate history, alternatehistory.net, that I was following that unfortunately I can't find, but if I find it again, I'll definitely post it in the comments, where they actually, the people writing it did have Bernie Sanders as the leader of sort of the it was called the American Commonwealth, and it was like if Canada and the US were one country and still under the rule of Britain. And Bernie Sanders is like the leader of the American Progressive Party and like crushed everybody else. He was a no one. Like this thread was made back when he was a no one. But again, also internet, so like I'm sure if Donald Trump was an option, he could have won too. But that's another thing that I actually find really lovely about the parliamentary system, is that you can't have someone like Donald Trump win because you need to be a member of parliament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot less superstar prime ministers and a lot more kind of just average workaholics minister. That is that it shows that I think the Labour Party, as much as its establishment, it's facing a grassroots revolt against its leadership that it can't ignore. And I think the Democrats are maybe 4 years off from that. They're lucky to have survived this time, but I don't think they'll survive it again. There's already people talking about primarying Hillary for the next election. Like, that's not a good sign. Like, no one was saying that when it was Barack Obama. So I keep saying it. The Democrats missed the train on history here, and it's going to come back to primary and goes the way of LBJ. But as far as what that says for Britain, it'll be very interesting to see now, because this means for sure Jeremy Corbyn is going to be the leader going into the next election. And what is it, 2017 or 2019?
No, it's 2020, because I think in 2012, Cameron signed the Fixed Parliament Act, which had terms set for 5 years. So an election has to occur on or before 5 years after the last one.
When 2020, so they had their last election in 2015.
Yeah. So the latest that the next one will be is May 2020. But sorry, Margaret Thatcher. Not Margaret Thatcher. She dead. Theresa May. So Theresa May can call an election earlier than that. But, since she just became prime minister and she really needs to establish herself, especially with Brexit, with the whole Brexit fallout, she's before 2020.
Yeah. And the other thing is, Because here's the difficult position the Tories are in. I believe the British leaving the EU is going to have serious negative economic ramifications. Public anger, that's why they even left the EU. There's already public anger about the state of affairs as far as the economy and look. Better. And if you have Jeremy Corbyn, if he manages to maintain a populist charm, which he probably can do, because I'm under the impression, do the Tories have a majority right now?
Yes, they do.
If the Tories have a majority, then anything that goes wrong, he'll be. If Brits are anything like Canadians, when you have a majority, no one blames us because it's understood they have no power. It's perceived because in effect they really have no power. You're living in effectively a one-party state when you have a majority. So he manages to not make any big gaffes, which to my understanding, he hasn't made any big gaffes that would turn off a progressive voting base. Very dangerous to slot, which I would be under the assumption they will, because Theresa May doesn't seem. I just don't agree with her. I feel like she can't do a good job. Just based off my belief system, I can't imagine she'd do a good job. Might be a great woman. I can't imagine she's going to be a great prime minister. So with that in mind, it'll be very interesting to see what that effect is going into 2020. Because I can only imagine. Because I was just reading recently that there's some Tories who actually want them to call another federal election as soon as possible, because there is some fear that what I'm saying might happen. That, they're going to have this majority for however long, but the longer they have it, the worse things are going to get. So it might be better to call that election earlier, get another majority now or next year, so you can go to 2022 effectively. And you can just increase your governing length and hope for the best.
I mean, Brexit is really the sticking point here. And the problem is that, so the referendum, meaning that it was basically just a really, really, really big poll. Because at no point in the language of the referendum does it say, if you vote this way, it has to happen. Yeah, and that's why there's so much confusion right now as to what's going to happen. Because people are like, all right, well, we have a prime minister who was also in the Remain column, like the last one, but we have a home secretary, a secretary of state for foreign affairs now, Boris Johnson, who led the Leave effort. What the hell's going on? The British press asked May, what is going on? She goes, Brexit is Brexit. Well, what the hell does that mean? Like, and it's not like there isn't precedent for this. It's a thing called Article 50. Hear more about this talk. We actually talked about this in the foreign policy forum at my school this past week, and we had the former German ambassador to North Korea talk to us about it, which is pretty interesting. But anyway, side note. So there's Article 50 in the EU Constitution that lays out the procedure to follow in order to leave. So it's not like Britain has absolutely no idea what to do. It's just the political will to actually do it.
Yeah.
And it could just end up, because there have been multiple occasions where Britain has negotiated for better terms in the EU, so and remain. So it could just end up like that. We don't know, but I think either way, Jeremy Corbyn looks really good going into the next election, because he can easily say, I'm not part of this mess, because he isn't, and you should vote for me because I can do better.
And that was the end of Matt.
No, I'm still here.
Anyway,
Still here.
fingers crossed, I suppose. We'll all be old men by the time we find out how this ends, but let's see where it goes.
Maybe we won't. Ooh.
I will be 25 in 2020. Jeez. Age. Anyway.
I'll be 22. Neat.
22. Ooh, I'll be 22 in December. Ooh. 5 years. I just noticed the massive age gap between us. Anyway, going on to the next story. I really wanted to cover this. I just found it, but I just found it so... It's so bad it's funny. It's the rare case of something being so bad it is funny. So, a company in St. Petersburg, Russia, I almost said Ukraine, that'd been funny, called Karobus. They make beds and things like that. You know, for like kids, you know, not kids, you know, they make furniture and that kind of stuff. You know, it's pretty mundane. But they've decided to do, yeah, the Russian IKEA. They've decided to do a new series of beds for children of various Russian tanks and military equipment. So already starting like, that's interesting. We're starting into that's interesting territory. The kind of ones where you're like, that's weird, but okay. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but okay, continue. But they've recently decided one of their beds in the line is a Buck missile launcher. Now, if you don't know what a Buck is, for those of us who are not big fans of military equipment, a Buck is a Russian surface-to-air missile system. And the Buck missile was used to shoot down Ukrainian, Malaysian Airlines flight MH17, which killed 298 people. And they've decided to just release this bed the same week the official report came out saying that, yes, indeed, Russia is to blame for shooting down that Malaysian airliner. So you know what? Okay, I almost want to give them a pass, just because it's like, yo, they probably didn't just build this bed because that happened. It probably was just like they were planning for this, and just ever so inconveniently, it came out at the same time that report came out, and they're like, oh, well, we're committed now. We've made all these beds.
I don't know. I think, okay, so if they had come out with that when the plane crashed, when the plane was shot down, then I'd be like, all right, that was an accident. But it already happened, dude. They already got shot down, and now, like, yeah, maybe the timing is coincidental. But dude, like, wait a little while. Like, that happened, what, a year, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
But I see. I don't think that I highly doubt that this was an accident. I think that was on purpose because they want to cash in on the news. Because
that's
if
true.
you look up, you know, Malaysian Airlines, whatever, and you look up that accident, first result you're gonna get is the report. Second result you're gonna get is that bed.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Go ahead, finish.
I think that's capitalism. I mean, that's what people do. I mean, what was it? In 2005 or maybe it was 2011, I can't remember. But like on some anniversary, like some big, you know, for some reason number that we ascribe importance to in number we ascribe importance to in our culture, anniversary of 9/11, all of a sudden all those video computer games started coming out about you had to shoot down the planes to keep them from hitting the twin towers and stuff like that, and other games like that. That was most definitely not a coincidence. So I don't see how this is.
It's interesting though because Russia, if I don't know if you've talked to a Russian about this stuff before, but they live in a like we talk about how we say, oh, Republicans might, or some conservatives might live in an alternate reality, and it makes it difficult to even have a discussion with them because like the entire conversation is hard to have because they just don't live with the same facts you do.
It used to be a war of
Russians,
opinions, now it's a war of facts.
yeah, Russians take that to a whole new level when it comes to this issue because they're like, oh no, you see, you Westerners don't get it. I don't know why I'm putting on a bad Russian accent. I'm going to stop because that's offensive. They're like, you see, you guys don't get it. This was a Nazi plot perpetuated by the Ukrainian government to try and get you Westerners to sympathize with their war against Russian separatists. They're the ones who shot down the plane. So that's why I almost want to give them passes, because I feel like if you worked at that company, you honestly don't believe a Russian buck site shot down that plane. You think the Ukrainians did it, or you think some Nazi agents within the United States government did it. You don't think the Russian government did it.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that, but I mean, at the same time, I'm just like, why? Like, even if you do believe that, the the friggin' report just came out. Like, there's still a fresh wound. Like, wait a little while.
That, and there's just a fundamental discomfort. Like, do they make M1 Abrams and Patriot missile launcher beds for kids in the U.S.?
No, that's the thing. Is like, we have this absurd gun culture and this absurd like macho man culture. I've never seen like one of those beds where it's shaped like an M1 Abrams or it's shaped like an aircraft carrier. Kids sleep. You kind of beds kids sleeping in the United States. Plain wooden beds. Your classic wooden beds. Maybe
Yeah.
they have railings. Maybe they have safeguards. But that's it. Like, all right, one might be a race car, or maybe like a princess thing. But first of all, no parent can afford that anymore. Second, like we might be insane with our guns and stuff like that, but like we know not to do that. Not like yeah.
An M6. How would you shape an M16 bed? How would you do that? I don't think that's possible.
You'd have to
Anyway.
so your head would have to be like where the butt of it is, and you just have to like kind of curl your neck around the side and then have the rest of your body like lay. Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, that just gets to another question of like, what kind of weird culture like is in Russia around the military that you're like, yes, I will buy my kid a T90 bed so they can dream of what, like shooting people with their T90 bed? That kind of sounds kind of messed up. Like, I get kids play army, but that seems kind of weird. That seems like an odd thing to glorify. I don't know. That's
See,
I feel some yeah.
in the U.S. we have like again this massive gun culture, but and of course there are a lot of those idiots that leave their guns unlocked and their kids get a hold of them and accidentally shoot them or shoot themselves or shoot their brother or whatever. But like it's not like a lot of parents are giving their 5-year-olds, Colt Colt 45s and like here go play. No, most people are smart enough to say, yeah, you're not allowed anywhere near my guns. And of course, there are those tragic accidents where people leave their guns out or whatever, and the kids get access to them. But like, it's never on purpose. That never happens on purpose. So, and yeah, like the kids might have toy guns, but that's the point. They're toy guns. They're not real guns. Or, they look like Nerf guns. They don't look like actual AK-47s.
Yeah. Yeah. Moral of the
Maybe
story.
it's different in the South. Maybe it's different. Maybe not even the South. Maybe just elsewhere. You know, maybe it's different. I just know growing up here in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, none of that happened, and we're a pretty conservative area for where we are. But who knows? Maybe in like Connecticut, it's different. I don't know. I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah, that's. I don't know. I guess the moral of the story is I think we might be just a tad normalizing warfare a little bit too much when we give our kids a buck missile site bed, even if we ignore the connection between that and MH17. It's weird to normalize war in that way.
Yeah. Just like why? I wouldn't even like. I wouldn't see that wouldn't even cross my mind to give my kids something like that. Like if I wanted like a specially made or like you know a bed like that, where it's like not your average bed, it's like a car or something like that. If I was gonna give that to my kids, if I ever have kids, it would be like a race car, or maybe a tree fort, or maybe a princess castle. It would not be like a cruise missile. It wouldn't be a nuclear warhead. It would be something very tame, very cute. Maybe okay, the most violent it would get is like maybe an Indiana Jones themed bedroom or a Star Wars themed bedroom. I would not like show my kid into the room and just have like Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, just like hey, look at this. Your lamp is shaped like a giant bullet. Isn't that cool? Like no, that's awful. How are those kids gonna sleep too? Like just that seems like a scary place to sleep in. I don't know. Maybe I'm an American and I'm soft.
Yeah, they're not strong like bull.
Yeah, Russian kid comes up to me. I'm like, so that's your bed, huh? And you just be like, I eat bullets for breakfast. You eat your frosted flakes, and I'm like, okay, jeez.
Random thing I just found out. Theresa May, first high-profile British conservative to come out in support of gay marriage. There you go.
Interesting.
Plus, yeah, you know. And she's also come out against free market capitalism. Random facts about Theresa May.
What? That doesn't even make any sense. I'd like to investigate that.
Britain has two streams of conservatism, kind of like Canada does. I'm sure the US does as well. But one of them is an old school one that is against capitalism because they feel that you should limit some people's freedoms because it's better for them, and she takes that to heart on the economy as well, because that's what the ideology is based around, is economically you should limit some people's economic capabilities because it is better for the economy in the long run if you do so. It's like a very old school British, like a 1900s, like a 1800s school of thought that apparently she says she follows.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, see, I'm all about government intervention in the marketplace, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like, yeah. I'm pretty sure there would be like moderate Republicans in the United States looking at that and saying that's not right.
That was weird. Okay.
I'm pretty sure there would be socialists looking at that and being like, yeah, that's weird.
That just sounds weird. That has a more reasonable sounding practical application than like, no, you don't understand. I'm like a classic liberalism conservative. It's like, oh, what does that mean? I guess in a country with a monarchy and no constitution, I guess that sounds more reasonable. But anyway, I guess we'll have to look into that more.
All right. Do you have? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let me see. Let me look at the stories real quick.
We have been about an hour.
Well, I just want to talk. I just want to talk about this one story real quick. So, audio was recently released from an event back during the primaries. I believe it was in April, where Hillary Clinton is quoted with calling Bernie Sanders supporters, saying that they live in their parents' basements. Now, since then, it's been a few days since that came out. People have absolutely lost their shit. They've been like, see, she hates Bernie supporters, she hates Bernie, blah, blah, blah. Here's the weird thing. Bernie Sanders came out and defended her. Now, of course, people are saying, oh, well, see, Bernie's a sellout, and of course he would, because now he endorsed her and he's a sellout, blah, blah, blah. Oy vey. This is why you don't just read headlines.
Yeah.
And this is what, I love The Hill. I think everybody knows that I love The Hill.
Yeah.
Their headline for this was absolute outrage porn at its finest. Like the potential for outrage porn at its finest. The outrage porn that I was talking about last show. This is here.
Yep.
This is it here. So, if you actually read the quote, which I know is a big task for a lot of people. Big task. Greatest task.
China's got bigger tasks.
If you actually read the quote, she's not demeaning them like, oh, these bums, they live in their parents' basements. No, if you read it, the tone you get from it is, these people live in their parents' basements. Like, they're the children of the Great Recession. They've grown up in economic hardships, and of course they're going to be in favor of Bernie Sanders because he promises big change, and they need big change. Like, that's the sense you get from the quote. If you actually read it, if you can't read that in what she's saying, I don't know what drugs you're on. But she does go on to say, Bernie made too big of promises, and they're not real, and people, that's why she thinks she's a better choice than Bernie because, of course, her whole tagline, I'm a progressive who gets things done, blah, blah, blah. And that's where we get into controversial area, I think, an area where I disagree with her. But, all in all, this is a non-story. This is a non-story other than that it shows, because this is private audio. I think it's from a fundraiser. Other than that, people are trying to use this as some sort of new 47% thing. It's not. It's actually Hillary Clinton showing the facade. She actually is human. She's not a lizard. She actually does realize that people are going through hardships, and she understands that's happening.
Matthew, you seem to be a lizard right now, talking like that. That's exactly what a lizard would say.
Just be like Bathilda Bagshot in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Just all of a sudden, just Nagini comes out of me and sheds my. And that's actually me.
Yeah. I was really hoping that you were gonna get to the hey, she didn't just say, yo, they're computer nerds who live in their mother's basement. They're no, I mean they live in their parents' basement because literally they got a college education and they work and they still can't afford a house. Because I've seen a few people's reactions, even to people I kind of respect on people we've worked with, and I'm just geez. Did you guys actually read the article you just posted?
Well, that's the thing is that, and that's kind of that. I'm actually kind of missing the days where if you posted a link on Facebook or on Twitter or something like that, you wouldn't get the headline. You just get the link, and you'd actually have to look at it.
Yeah.
But now it's, of course, they have the little preview with the thumbnail and the headline, and that's all people need. And this actually came into play also this week with the whole thing about Trump's taxes, which, because a lot of liberal pages that I follow were like, Trump avoided taxes for 20 years. When in reality, the New York Times investigation found that he could have avoided taxes.
Yeah.
There's no definite yet. They're not entirely sure if he avoided taxes or not, or I forget what exactly did.
I think that's a bit more fair, just because he's been so not releasing them despite pressure to do so. I
Yeah.
think that's why people are disposed to thinking he hasn't, because he must not be releasing his taxes for some reason.
Well, yeah, I think it's more founded to just go ahead and say that, but I mean, the headline is still misleading. It's still misleading to say Trump avoided taxes for 20 years. Not necessarily. We don't have confirmation on that yet. Like, let's wait a second. Like, I get that everything moves pretty quickly, but I think we could stop for 2 days and wait for the actual news of, actual confirmation to come out or not. If you want to get outraged that he could have, because it's not like the fact that he could have and not that he definitely did. It's not like that's a problem. That's still a very big problem that he has at least the opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's very reasonable to get outraged about that alone. Like, it doesn't have to be that it's confirmed. It's not like you're going to be having an argument with someone and say, oh, well, they say, oh, well, it's not confirmed. It's not like that destroys your argument. It's still bad.
Yeah. Anyways, I saw some conservatives, not conservatives, I guess Republicans posting like, yo, but because Hillary released her taxes, we know that she sometimes used the same tax tricks. Problem. But I think there's a difference, because Clinton isn't trying to portray herself as, oh, I'm the common man who gets you. She's like, no, I am the establishment, and I am here to help. That's a completely different message. And I think she can kind of get away with a bit more. That, and she actually released her taxes. That's how you know she did it. So it's a little bit of it's all different.
That's actually a great. See, the dynamic here is between Superman and Batman, really. If both of them were deplorable people.
Yeah.
Trump is Batman, right? He's trying to, or at least he's trying to be Batman, and Hillary Clinton is Hillary Man. I think that's it. I think we solved it. That's the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Hillary Man versus Trump Man, or Bat Trump.
Bat Trump.
Bat Trump and Super Hillary.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Well, I suppose that's it for tonight.
Yep.
Thank you all for joining us. Please, as always, check us again around. Come back and watch us again next week for another Cubic Dimension. Same bat time, same bat channel, but not Bat Trump. And as always, have malice toward God.